Today we're talking about greed. It's a subject that is not so nice to hear about sometimes, but if it was important to our Lord, it's important to us. And so today we're going to be reading from Luke 12, starting with the 13th verse. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man produced a good crop. And he thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." And then he said, "This is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of good things laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool. This very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with anyone who stores up things for himself, but is not rich towards God." God's word for God's people. Thanks be to God. You know, I always get tickled because sometimes when you're driving, it gets a little boring. So I'm a big bumper sticker reader, okay? And I don't know how many of y'all can remember a bumper sticker. It was quite a while back, like maybe 25 years ago. And it tended to be on like expensive sports cars. But the bumper sticker said, "Whoever dies with the most toys wins." You remember that one? Yeah. I never could quite understand that because certainly they were flaunting that they already had nice fancy toys. And I'm kind of guessing that would not have been a bumper sticker on Jesus's old heathen, okay? That would not have been a bumper sticker that Jesus would have put on his car. Maybe he'd have put something more on his bumper as "you can't take it with you." I think that would be the bumper sticker that Jesus would have chosen. And besides, it kind of fits in with one of my most favorite jokes. Y'all know pastors have a lot of opportunity to be with grieving families and be present to lead people in a funeral and memorial service. So my favorite joke about funerals is that a hearse never has a U-Haul behind it. You can't take it with you. And so I think that is also a reminder about what this man in the parable that we just read is really talking about here. This man had an abundance of grain and goods. And so, because he was so overflowing with riches, he said, "I'll just tear down the old barns. They're too small. I'll put up a new one." And then he says to his soul, "Hey, relax and party. Life is good and I'm rolling in the grain." And so he knew he had enough crops from that abundant year to last him for many years. So he thought, relax, eat, drink, and to be merry. But God called him a fool. God called him a fool. I don't want to be called a fool by God. And here God's telling him that very night his life was going to be demanded of him. So he who dies with the most toys doesn't really win. So what does it mean? This guy has worked hard. It never said he was a slacker. He worked hard for all that he had. And he saves it up. And he wants to relax. Kind of sounds like our contemporary version of retirement, doesn't it? Work hard all your working years so that you can relax and enjoy retirement. So is this telling us that retirement is a sin? Does it mean that it's sinful and that we're fools when we're conservative with our money and save it up for our leaner years? That's not really what this parable is about. That's not really the message that Jesus is trying to give here as he was teaching this sermon. In this parable, I think Jesus saw very clearly that this man was in danger of being gripped by greed. Being gripped by greed. He was so dominated. As the guy was asking Jesus questions, he was so dominated about if he was going to get his fair share of his inheritance between him and his brother. Was it going to be fair? Was it going to be equal? He was so preoccupied with getting what he believed was his. Jesus was actually in the middle of the teaching, and this fellow interrupted him to make his request, foolishly thinking that Jesus' judgment would take and increase the amount that he got. But Jesus took this opportunity in this moment to teach us all a big lesson, to teach us and warn us about this sin of greed, a sin that has manifested its way, in so many ways in our life. So Jesus goes on after this man is interrupted, giving the story of the parable of this farmer, the man who was getting rich and richer all the time because his crops came in so well. Jesus explained that greed is basically a selfish attitude towards material things. The man was blessed with good crops. He was wanting to build a bigger barn because his couldn't store everything. And rather than realizing that abundance, everything that he got that year was from God, he instead began to think about how can I hoard it? How can I hold on to this? How can I save it so I don't have to work for a while? And never in the man's talk, in the farmer's talk, does he ever talk about thanking God or giving a tithe back to God with what he had received. You see, he was rich in material things, but he did not have a rich relationship with God. Otherwise, I think he would have acted differently. I think Jesus saw that he, the man, was acting foolish. I don't think he was necessarily acting like some of us, even in this congregation. You see, we have people among us who understand very, very deeply how much everything we have is a blessing from God. People who, on January 1st of each year, when they receive their required allotment from their savings, immediately the tithe comes from that and gets given for God's work here in the church. The tithe comes first. And I know people who are bean counters. They always tickle me. My husband's kind of one. And everything's in the computer, and everything's lined up so nicely. And the spreadsheet that shows all bills to be paid each month. And I'm so in awe of people who love God enough that line 1 is always God. Line 1 on their spreadsheet. And so this man, not acknowledging that God was the cause of his abundance, was acting like a fool. And so, although he had preparing for retirement, preparing to take it easy, he had not prepared himself for eternity. Yeah, he died that very same day because of this selfish decision. And it made that decision his last decision. It made that decision the one that he would be judged for. Because you see, none of us know the day we're going to die. We don't know the day or the hour. And everyone will stand accountable before God for what we've done with our life and what we've done with what he's blessed us with. Our actions while here on earth is what shows God what's in our hearts. Our actions are used to determine what our eternal destiny will be, because these actions open the doors to our hearts. And I think one of the reasons that we want to have this rich relationship with God is because it's a way that we can say and let God take and be the one who directs our material things. You see, he's given them to us. We wouldn't have anything if he hadn't given it to us. And so God gave us these things. God should direct us on what to do with them. You see, Jesus in this sermon instructed his followers in verses 33 and 34. He said, sell what you have and give it to those in need. This will store up treasures for you in heaven. And the purses of heaven have no holes in them. Your treasure will be safe. No thief can steal it. No moth can destroy it. Whatever your treasure is, there your heart and your thoughts will be too. Verse 13 goes on to say, Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. The man who had interrupted Jesus was not just interrupting him. He was telling Jesus what to do. He was telling Jesus what words to say and what actions to say. Is that the way we're asked to relate to God? Is that the way that we're taking and looking at what it means to have Jesus in our lives? Jesus had given us warning about how hazardous an inheritance can be. He says in verse 15, take care and be guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. He sees this guy who's so worried that he's getting an equal share between him and his brother is at risk of losing his grip. And he sees some evidence of the hazard that this inheritance, this money, is tricking this guy into acting in a way that is indeed ungodly. And I think that's why money can get so hazardous. It can lie. It can be deceitful. It can convince us that it has more power than it really does. It deceives us. And what does it say? It says that if you lose me, you're going to lose a big part of your life. If you lose me, because money is the most important thing, then what's your life going to be like? I am your life, money says. I am the biggest, importantest part of your life. And life will be really life, true life, if you have me. So money whispers into all of our lives. And this whispering of money is what causes us to have fear. Fear of scarceness. But God doesn't have a plan for us. God doesn't have a plan for us to be without what we need. Paul knew that riches were insidious and would sneak in with their evil lies. And that's why in 1 Timothy 6, verses 18 and 19, he says, be rich in good works. Be rich in good works. Be ready to share. Take a hold of that, which is true life. In other words, don't let money whisper deceit into your ears. Don't let money woo you with words that will imprison you. The message of money that fuels our greed is that it gives us life, and that your life will be drab and boring and empty and meaningless without me, money. I am your life. Jesus says right back. Jesus says, one's life does not consist in the abundance of your possessions. In other words, Jesus says it's a lie. Take care and be on your guard, he warns us. Not only is an inheritance not your life, it's about to take your life. And that's more or less the message that he's trying to get through here. The issue is not mainly whether or not you get your fair share, but whether wanting it so much destroys your life. This farmer, he could look like the bad guy here, but he wasn't a bad guy. He really wasn't greedy per se. He wasn't wicked. He'd not gained his wealth illegally, and he didn't take advantage of anyone to get his wealth. He worked for it. And that's something that we would love to see more people do. He seems a little surprised even that he's got this good fortune, that he's got all this extra grain, and he's trying to figure out what to do with this blessing that he's received, although he doesn't recognize it as a blessing. So he's trying to make some fairly reasonable plans, because when the crop comes in, it's got to be stored. And so we ask, well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with building bigger barns to store the abundance of the harvest? Because tomorrow could be leaner. And there's not anything wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with that except two things. First, this farmer really was self-focused. When you really drill down on the words of this passage, on this parable, you hear every place to store my crops.
Then he said, I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build bigger ones. And I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul. I'd say that brother's a little self-focused. The relentless use of these first-person pronouns. Some of y'all who are teachers can get all along with that one, okay? But these first-person pronouns is revealing this man's heart. He worked hard, and he's had an abundance, and now he's trying to figure out what to do with it. It's all about him. It's all about him. He's taken and he's putting all of his joy on finite things instead of the infinite. He's trying to insulate himself from fate and fortune by having productive farming and adequate resources. He believes that he has all he needs. But there's no expression of helping others, no expression of gratitude for his good fortune. Certainly no recognition of God's part in this at all. The farmer has fallen prey to the most popular god of all, the unholy trinity of me, myself, and I. The unholy trinity, thinking of yourself only. And this leads to, and maybe it's caused by the second mistake. He's not foolish because he made a provision for the future. He's foolish because he believes by his wealth he can secure his future. In verse 19, he says, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry. I don't think there's probably a one of us who at some point haven't thought in our head, and probably more often than not, if I can just get enough money, if I can just get enough of whatever, then everything will be good. How often does that end in discipline? How often, once we get that fast, new, sleek laptop, so we can do work wherever we go, that we realize we've become a prisoner to our work? How often we get that fancy new car, the one we've wanted all our life, and now, oh, I deserve to have it. And it really ends up being the same as the last car, a set of 4 wheels to get you where you're going. And how about for young people? I'll disclose my age a little bit. When I was in middle school, there was this pocketbook called the Fish Basket. And it was from Itina Agner, I think is how it's pronounced. You remember that one? No, okay, I'm older than you. It's a fish basket. It was the pocketbook. I'm telling you, to not have one in middle school was deadly. All right, because it was the pocketbook to have. And it looked like a trout fisherman's basket. And it had leather, and you open it. It's like the kind you put fish in when you're trout fishing. It's a woven basket. Well, my family couldn't afford to go like in the Agner fish basket. So I didn't carry a purse rather than carry the wrong purse. I knew that my future as a teenager would be assured if I had that fish basket pocketbook. No. I think we all find that no matter how deeply it's ingrained in our culture, no matter how much the media likes to grind it into our faces, that we have to have this and we have to have that ultimately material goods are disappointing. Even when sometimes we buy stuff, more stuff, to cover up the disappointment of the last stuff we bought. When we have to get rental space because our house won't hold all our stuff, when our stuff's flowing over. You know, and we get sad. So what do? Ladies, we go for a little retail therapy, don't we? And go buy some more stuff. And so we have been so programmed to believe that if we just get that next whatever, life will be good. And we can take and maybe learn a lesson from people that we call the two-thirds world. Have you ever heard of the two-thirds world? That's the two-thirds of the entire globe that doesn't have enough. That's the two-thirds world. And I learned how deeply
It can make a difference in attitude to not have stuff. For many years, every summer, I would take a group to the Bahamas. You know, the Bahamas has hundreds of islands. We only really know about Nassau. But all these other islands are called the Family Islands. And I would take groups of high schoolers every summer over to do a Bible school for both the high schoolers and the elementary for these islands because they were so isolated. And poverty doesn't even begin to describe what it's like. We'd have to go to the ocean and dip a bucket full of water to come back in to flush the toilet with because see they didn't have running water. We had to use our pillowcases to pour water from the cistern through to get the algae and the tadpoles out before we boiled it to drink. You see, there was no regular food service arriving at the island. They pretty much had to live off of the island. The children, the many, many children, never had a piece of candy wrapped in cellophane. And to pay us back, early in the morning, as the mist would rise over the jungle of the little islands, the children would be up and out, thrilled with what we'd offered them the day before, thrilled with the message of Jesus, where we made Jesus so much fun for them. And they'd go out into the trees and bring us back a papaya or a banana, and gifted us each morning with our breakfast. For you see, that's how they ate breakfast. And at night, when we labored all day in teaching Jesus to these children, they'd close the schools so all the kids could come. And we'd teach. We'd be hungry. And the old ladies would holler at the teenage boy, "You boy, go get me the fish." Beautifully, with no backward. The boys would get in their boats and spear a few fish and bring them back, and the ladies would make us fish stew. Maybe with a few root vegetables they'd grown right there. And it was in the joy they had of sharing from their scarcity that we realized something that they knew that we didn't know. For you see, we think in our greed and our materialism that somehow death might not come to us. That with the right cosmetics or the right medications and the right vitamins and the right exercise club, we can live longer. But I think living close to the land, living where there was nothing material to be had, they acknowledged that death was ever present, and there was no need to store up what they had no need of possibly the next day. There were fewer illusions about what it meant to have material goods. You see, for us, money is that spiritual elephant that's in the room. And we know that our material abundance is not enough, but yet it is such a struggle to overcome the seduction of possessions. I know you've all heard, because the media talks about it all the time, money is one of the number one things that drive couples, married couples apart. Money is such a stressful issue. But money is also a spiritual issue. You see, in the next few weeks, as we take and offer you a chance to pledge your support to this ministry, to do God's work in this community, there are some who are unwilling to pledge. Perhaps it's because of embarrassment. Perhaps they feel like their pledge is not enough. But the pledge is not for people. The pledge is for God. The pledge is the way of saying, God, I intend to be faithful in what you've given me, to return it, to do the work of ministry here. For you see, some people are not as faithful as God calls them to be. But life is not about having things. Life is indeed about knowing God. And it's not a bad thing if your land has produced abundantly. It's not a bad thing if your business prospers. It's not a bad thing if your investments increase in value. That's not the evil. That's not what Jesus is saying here. What he's saying is, taking and getting this attitude, this farmer says, my treasure is relaxing, eating, drinking, and having fun. He treasures his stuff more than he treasures God. And And God wants us to see that as an issue for us too. That the supreme treasure in our lives is indeed not our stuff, but indeed to acknowledge that God is the giver of all riches, that God is the supreme treasure. By saying, God, this is all yours. God, you made my deals prosper. God, show me how to take what you blessed me with and what you do with it. God, I know I have enough for my needs. God, show me how to take this blessing and do more. Because, God, I don't need more food and bigger parties. God, I don't need to make merry in self-indulgent parties. Because, God, I want to make merry with those who've been helped by my generosities. God, I want the fullest blessing of giving. Because we know that Jesus said, more blessing to give than it is to receive. So what we do with our resources, our money, now matters. Being rich towards God instead of storing up treasures does matter. If you examine your life and look, it makes us wonder, how do we seek to treasure the gifts that God considers most precious? And I think in reading through this parable this week, and thinking hard about what God is saying not only to us, but what is God saying to me? It made me realize that yes, God is my greatest treasure, and I trust in Him always to provide. But my greatest treasure on this earth is my family. And that's why tomorrow night, Tuesday night, I'm asking the church to vote for a new parsonage. My family is not safe in that parsonage. They are my treasure, and I'm greedy for them. I'm not greedy for a new house. I love that house. Why would I move to a smaller house? Why would I begin to commute if I weren't greedy for the safety of my family? This street has changed. It's not safe. The police are here an average of once a day because of the crime on this street. And I'm greedy for my family's sake. And I'm greedy to continue to serve you as your pastor. For if I can't keep my family safe, I will have to find another place for them to be and another place for me to serve. So greedy is more than money. Greedy is about all of the things in our life. Are we willing to give of ourselves to do what is right? Are we willing to do what God calls us to do? Keeping Him first as our treasure. Keeping Him first in all the ways we consider how to go far together as the church of Jesus Christ. We pray. Father God, we thank you for the joy of not taking and finding ourselves bound by our possessions, but finding in you, Lord, all the abundance. And in the work that you give us in this covenant community, Lord, we thank you, Lord, that we have a joy of showing the Lord what it means to having God as our riches. We pray in His name. Amen.